Know what I'm saying? Let's see. How's everybody doing today, man? Let me set up the next big story. But, speaking of homelessness, houselessness, that's what the next story is about. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody has a place to live right now, that they're not struggling just to, keep a roof over their house, over their head. I have, things were kind of scary in the beginning of the pandemic. I'm back at work, though. Things are going okay.
Victory for
I hope same for y'all. But you can let me know. Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't yet, please like the stream. Subscribe if you haven't. Find me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at Political Payne, and we'll have some fun. Talking crap about morons and kind of commiserating over the crumbling of our planet and society. And one of the signs of that, about the imminent doom and danger that our society is living in, was the impending eviction crisis. Which was recently extended, the eviction moratorium, the federal eviction moratorium due to coronavirus. That's the CDC eviction moratorium, was expired. And this is, the responsibility of the Democrats, the Biden administration, congressional Democrats, the party in power, right? It's very much their responsibility to kind of be on top of this. And, there was just happened to be a massive donation to the Democratic Party from Realtors Association. And they just didn't, the Democratic Party, Nancy Pelosi, leadership, Chuck Schumer, just weren't that motivated to focus on this, it seems. But thankfully, we had progressive member of the House, often, lumped in with the squad, or, is a member of the squad. Cori Bush slept outside the Capitol to protest evictions. Democrats credited her for renewed protections. This is Representative Cori Bush, Missouri. Let's see. Wind whipped along the steps of the U.S. Capitol on Sunday night as rain pattered, slowly soaking Representative Cori Bush's sleeping bag. She struggled to get warm, a familiar feeling, she said. 2 decades earlier, the Missouri Democrat, who then lived in her car, spent sleepless nights shivering as she held her 2 young children in her arms. This time, Bush chose to brave the elements. For 3 nights, she slept outside the Capitol, joining activists and fellow Democratic lawmakers protesting the lapse in the federal eviction moratorium, which had protected renters during the pandemic. The move drew national attention, forcing the White House to respond to Bush's demands to temporarily halt evictions after Congress went on recess without addressing the issue. On Tuesday, Bush's campaign succeeded. There is an interview from her.
The White House issued kicked out of there. Missouri Congresswoman Cori Bush, a progressive Democrat who has dealt with homelessness herself, slept for days on the steps of the Capitol to urge the White House to act.
Hopeful that it is what will help 11 million people stay in their homes, 6 million families to be secure in housing. And let me say, activists are in Congress. So let's be clear. Activists are in Congress.
Hell yeah.
Expect for things to be different than what maybe people are used to.
So, I got asked recently, am I on the tear down AOC and the squad side of the online YouTube left, or am I more, lean the other way? I can have and have had criticisms of the squad and some of these more left members of the House, but you ain't gonna hear me, criticize anything that's going on here. This is massively important what Cori Bush did, and it and like they explained, she has a personal experience with homelessness. That's part of what I don't understand. People who call AOC a sellout or a shill when she was a bartender just a few years ago. Oh well, now she's a congressperson. Okay, so poof, she's no longer a class ally in any way. Cori Bush years ago experienced homelessness, and here's a little more of what she had to say.
A Democrat from Missouri who. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. You were camped out for a couple of nights on the Capitol steps. You've been leading the protest. You have a personal story, your own experience in the past with homelessness. So tell us why you're trying to dramatize this. I think I know, with your background, just how important this is to you.
Boy, that was a very clumsy ending of that question.
Yeah, so we've been out here since Friday.
She's kind of like, yeah, that's weird the way you're asking that.
Night, the hour before I decided, and I spoke with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and just said, hey, what about let's just stay out here? Let's just, put up some chairs and just stay. And she said, like, okay, I'm down. The hour before that, I had no idea that that's what we would be doing. But the idea that we could go on recess and we could go on vacation as the House of Representatives while millions of people, upwards of 11 million people could end up being forced out of their homes. There was no way my brain couldn't comprehend that. So,
she couldn't comprehend how Congress is lacking in basic human decency, right? She's new. She's a freshman, Congress member. Devoid Reality says respect to Cori. Yeah, very cool. But this had an immediate, real effect on people. Listen to this.
On Monday, CNN showed you a Las Vegas mother facing eviction after she lost her job when the pandemic hit. Dasha Kelly sold and pawned much of her furniture for cash just to keep her family afloat. After her story aired on CNN, more than $192,000 and counting has been donated to her GoFundMe page, thanks to the help of strangers. On Tuesday, she was back on CNN thanking all the people who helped her, including U.S. House Democrat Cori Bush.
It's an honor to even speak with you. I'm just so fortunate right now. This is beyond me. You don't understand. Like, when I put that up, I never thought that anybody would have reached out, especially CNN, and then to hear that a congressperson, my story reached you. This is just amazing. I'm so thankful for that there's people like you out there. I'm so thankful for it. Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
So it sounds like she also got a GoFundMe account. Now, wouldn't it be nice if we could do that for everybody, right? There's no way we could. There's no way we could do a GoFundMe account for every, single mother facing eviction, every parent facing, every individual facing eviction. Literally thousands, if not millions of Americans are facing, homelessness right now. That's how precarious our economic situation is. I was watching some of the press conference with Jen Psaki today, and the job numbers are out and they're good, right? There's been an increase in jobs, and already centrist media is asking, is it time to get rid of all this aid and stimulus that your government is still trying to push forward, even though we've had 1 month of increased job numbers? I say, right? It's like, this is like the fat cats, you know what I mean? Complaining about overspending, right? This is in Mother Jones. Evictions are coming. Democrats failed to meet this moment, says Democrats. So the recognition that Nancy Pelosi, I don't even want to say drop the ball. I don't even want to say she dropped the ball on this one because she knew full well. Maybe she just let the ball lie there, right? Because, she's a very wealthy landlord herself. She represents that constituency, and many Democrats do. But this was an absolute failure. Of course, the centrist corporate media like CNN, I've shared a few CNN clips here, very, very barely at all covering my disdain. But when you hear this, I mean, Cori Bush, just by making a spectacle and reminding the Beltway and the politicians in the media what Americans actually face with homelessness by sleeping out on the Capitol steps. Now they have to find a way to go after her. So, they picked the one time she said a slogan that they hate during her whole, Capitol steps camp out. Let's hear this really quick.
Progressives, she actually pushed Cori Bush, who is fresh off what was a big victory for progressives. She actually pushed the Biden administration to extend its moratorium on evictions across the hard-hit COVID areas in the country, which is most of the country. And she's now facing backlash from Republicans because she said this when asked about her use of personal private security.
I'm going to make sure I have security because I know I have had attempts on my life and I have too much work to do. There are too many people that need help right now for me to allow that. So if I end up spending $200,000, if I spend $10 more on it, you know what? I get to be here to do the work. So suck it up, and defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police and put that money into social safety nets.
So they cut her off before she could continue to make that actual point. Really, like, CNN is sounding... This is what radical centrism gets you guys. They sound like right-wing media. Like, oh, she wants to defund the police, but she has a private security detail. Hypocrite much? It makes no sense whatsoever. It makes no sense.
Is this for Democrats?
And then she dared say defund the police. How dare she say such a thing?
Safety nets.
Notice she said defund the police and fund social safety nets. Oh, scary.
Republicans are already seizing on this, Michael. How problematic is this for Democrats?
That guy's smiling.
It's extremely problematic. And look, I understand what she means when she says we need to defund the police, but we need better messaging on that. Because what she really means is instead of spending a ballooning amount of money on police, we need to put more money in social care and into mental health programs. But that's not a short soundbite that you can say as easily. And so...
Well, she kind of was saying it. She just said it. Defund the police and support social programs. But, you guys cut her off in the middle of it to worry about what Republicans thought about it. I don't need to hear more from CNN on that. I mean, that's, you know what? Let's hear a little bit more from CNN on it, because this was obviously a victory for progressives and progressives in the Congress. But pair this up with the loss by Nina Turner in Ohio's 11th. And you have this kind of smugness. Let's hear this guy.
Right now, taking a hard look at the chessboard, you might say. This week, progressive Democrats right now taking a hard look at the chessboard, you might say. Led by the Missouri Congresswoman Cori Bush, the left wing of the party pushed the White House to renew an eviction. Look at the chessboard, you might say. Led by the Missouri Congresswoman Cori Bush, the left wing of the party pushed the White House to renew an eviction moratorium. They won.
Which is a good thing.
They also lost a winnable primary in Ohio. So emboldened.
It was a special election, just like a couple thousand voters, inundated by tons of corporate money, the Israel lobby, dark money, PAC money, but, and very low turnout. It was like a 15% turnout of the whole district. But anyway.
And on the one hand, discouraged on the other. So now what? Some progressives see proof in the evictions fight they can move the Biden White House their way. Some moderate Democrats, though, see proof in the Ohio primary results that the president should worry more about the middle and less about the left. Our panel is back with us now to discuss. Molly Ball, this is 1 week, 2 big episodes in 1 week. We should be careful not to count any one as decisive, but this is going to be the constant tug-of-war of the Biden presidency, isn't it? Because there is an ideological, generational movement in the Democratic Party, but many of the moderates say it just gets too much attention.
Yeah, it is. I do want to point out that the whole House was on the side of the progressives in this. Right. The House working very hard to pass the buck from themselves and say, no, this isn't our fault that this isn't being continued. We want the White House to do it. So the progressives were backed by essentially the entire House Democratic caucus in this.
That's absolutely not true. I like how she just says the House. neglecting Nancy Pelosi's leadership position.
Have not been as successful in intra-caucus fights when they want something that Nancy Pelosi doesn't want, and they have not been as successful in elections. The squad has grown in numbers, in small part, but they still the extreme left is still not a huge amount of people in the Democratic caucus. So can they be strategic and use their leverage, use their clout in the razor-thin House Democratic majority to accomplish more things? We'll see.
Yeah, so, notice how on corporate news, corporate media, CNN and otherwise, the default position is always to the right. The default position, and that's what centrism is it's a default towards the right, and everything else, basic social programs, basic social democracy, that's the extreme left. She said the extreme left, or people call it the hard left, or the the radical left. Just goes to show you that the powers that be, and I'm talking I'm not doing a vast conspiratorial finger waving thing. I'm saying that the hegemonic corporate capitalist interests in this country exist in both parties. We know that, right? We're not children. But every attempt by the left to achieve anything, if it's successful, it'll be like, well, everybody supported that. All the Democrats wanted that. And any setback for the left is going to be, does the Democratic Party, does Biden really need to listen at all to the left? So keep a focus on this. Notice how it's framed. The left is always seen as the problem. We're always seen as we're scapegoated every time. In the last election, what was her name? Spanberger, the CIA agent Democrat in the House, was blaming defund the police before the returns were even in for losses in the House, when none of the candidates that ran on Medicare for All lost re-election. Okay, incumbents, that is. None of the incumbents who ran on Medicare for All lost their elections. Personally, I agree here with Malika Jabali, who says folks on here spent days belittling Cori Bush's protest as a sleepover photo op, but she may have single-handedly facilitated a ban on evictions for 2 more months. Being a keyboard warrior is cute, but some officials are actually fighting to get things done. Malika Jabali is not a cheerleader. She is not a partisan. But this, she was retweeting this. Representative Cori Bush, who has been protesting and sleeping outside the U.S. Capitol building at the steps for 5 days in protest of the expiration of the eviction moratorium, and AOC celebrate news that the White House intends to extend the eviction moratorium. Photo by Evelyn Pix. Gonna follow her. It's always good, photographers. That's a great image. So this is why you're not going to hear on this channel endless, unnecessary dumping on the squad and calling them the fraud squad and all this shit. We are just barely beginning to build a left movement electorally, which is the most difficult and uphill Sisyphean task, right? Sisyphus rolling the boulder up the hill every day, to try to build any type of left electorally. So when somebody does something correct and well, as I would say Cori Bush did, and getting help from allies like AOC, this should be celebrated. This should be recognized for what it was. This is what leveraging power can do, and can do for people, millions of people who are going to be affected by the eviction moratorium, which still is set to expire now in 2 months, and may even get smacked down by the Supreme Court. So, the best answer is social democratic. We need a housing guarantee for all. If Bernie had won, we'd be having a much different conversation, wouldn't we? But we can't live in the best world. We live in this world, and it ain't the world's. They're not sending their best, folks. Let me just say that like that. Okay.